podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe and download.
Hey everybody, welcome to Narativ Live's special coverage of the last debate, the last final debate. Can you believe it's how many days now? Are we 10 days away? Is this possible, guys?
12.
12.
12.
Jumping ahead of myself, but every day seems like a lifetime. And what an interesting debate tonight was. Welcome to the show, Sherry Jacobus, who's with us. You're in South Carolina today.
I'm in South Carolina for a few days, yes.
How nice is that? You can give us a read on what's it
beautiful.
like on the ground for Lindsey
Yes.
Graham. And Lincoln's Bible is back. How are you, LB?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be back.
It's great to have you here. We've missed you.
Yeah.
And Greg Oliar is here as well from New York. How are you doing, Greg?
I am, that's 90 minutes of my life I'm not going to get back, but here I am.
But, I got to say, what a great job Joe Biden did tonight. I mean, I thought he just hit it home in every aspect. And I don't think there were many points that Trump got away with, not that there was much that he could have got away with. Let's go around the horn and see how everyone feels. Greg, why don't you start us off here?
I was a little concerned at first. I thought Trump was actually pretty good. I mean, insofar as he can be. He was speaking in complete sentences and seemed vaguely coherent at the beginning, and seemed to remember what people maybe had told him to talk about. And Joe took a little while to get going and wasn't hitting him hard enough initially. And I thought, oh, is this going to be like this all night? But Trump eventually ran out of whatever drug he was on and rambled into incoherent la la land with the Russia, and this, that, and the other. And Biden got angry. And I like when Joe gets righteous. The righteous anger plays really well, I think. I think it's justified. I think it comes across as super authentic and gives him this great gravitas. And he's right about all this stuff. The key moment of the entire debate, they were talking about the kids in the cages. And Biden said sort of at the end, 525 children are not going to, go. They don't know where their parents are tonight. And Trump said, good.
Right.
That's it. That's the whole fucking debate right there.
Yeah. Certainly one of the key moments. LB?
Oh, we're cursing on this. Okay, good.
Yeah, we do. It's I've tried to stop it. It doesn't work. So I just thought, let's go with it.
I'm cool with it.
LB, what are your thoughts about tonight?
I think the threat of the mics being cut, I didn't get a moment where they were. I did have to step away for 5 minutes or so, but it didn't seem like that mic thing was getting enforced anyway. But the threat of that actually, I think, worked in Trump's favor. He contained himself. We didn't get the insanity, the chaos. The lies continued. I think even Daniel Day was saying, this is more lies than he's ever, every time he speaks, Daniel's like, it's more lies than ever before. My drink arrived. Thank you.
Oh, yay. Thank you.
Yay.
She has her own personal waiter. That's great.
That's the way you do things, Sherry.
I'm impressed.
My very silent partner who silently brings me a beautiful drink every time. So, I just, so I think it's important to remember, and we get lost in our own bubbles of forgetting what the other bubble wants and needs and feeds off of. And he delivered everything that his people want and need and feed off of. He really did.
Trump did, yeah.
Trump did. Yeah. So the debate prep worked for him. He stayed, believe it or not, the message is good. That is him being on message. That is what his people want to hear. They want to hear, these children have been separated. They'll never see their parents again, and they want to hear their guy go, good. That's what they want. It's hard for us to conceive that. But that's what they want. And so they got what they want out of this debate. I don't know that it's going to make any damn difference at all.
At this point, there are not many undecided voters, but maybe there are one or two that could change their mind. Certainly not towards Trump. It's possible, though. Sherry, what do you think about tonight?
Well, the fact of the matter is, it's really kind of hard to win a debate. You can only lose a debate, and that's the only thing that really can affect an election. Debates are difficult. You want to not make any mistakes. And I'm going to reference Joe Biden when he was debating Sarah Palin. He was very bland. He was very vanilla. He knew that debate that night was about her. And all he had to do was not make mistakes, not screw up, and to be relatively forgettable. I thought tonight, because of again, as you all noted, the threat of the mics being muted, and in fact we're muted, that changed everything for Trump. And he knew that the last debate was a shit show. He knows that people understand that he is the one who basically chickened out of the one after that, where they each had their own town halls. So he actually did good for Donald Trump tonight. But we have 48 million Americans who have already voted. Mm-hmm. And the early voters largely go with Joe Biden. I don't think there was anything tonight that was huge, except for the fact that you had Donald Trump. We have a black woman as a moderator, and he's basically saying, "I'm the least racist person in the room, except for the room is so dark and I can't see anybody." It's just like, keep talking, keep talking. That's just what it was. And Jennifer Rubin, the Washington Post columnist, she had a great tweet, something along the lines of just think that this is the last time that we ever have to sit through a Donald Trump debate. And I thought that was like the best tweet ever. And that was a reminder that, look, whatever happened tonight, I don't think either one of them screwed up horribly. When you grade on a curve, and we do grade on a curve for Trump, the thing that I'm concerned about is in the post script of this, when they start looking at this and talking about it, that there's going to be some pundits that are going to be tempted to do what they always do, which is grade Donald Trump on a curve. And unless he is out there foaming at the mouth and walking around with toilet paper stuck to his shoe, which he has done before, literally, we have video of Donald Trump walking around and they tend to say, this really worked for him. And so the overall thought that I had was that Joe Biden looked like he was just tired of this, just sick and tired of all of this. And it's been a long campaign. And when you look like you're going up against someone like Trump, he's just tired of this. And normally that would be a negative, I think, for any candidate to show that type of thing, except for the fact that the rest of us also feel that way. And Stu Stevens had a great piece in the Bulwark. I think it was, I saw it today. I think it came out today, that basically expressed that sentiment. It's like, we are so tired of having to worry about and think about Donald Trump. And wouldn't it be nice? I mean, I don't want to hear from a president again. I want to hear, I want to get the news. I want to see a statement every now and again, but I don't want to have to get up each day and turn on my computer and look at Twitter and go, oh God, what the fuck is he said? What the hell has he said? And so tonight's debate, I think what it showed, if Donald Trump, he was actually okay. And if he had been this guy for the past 5 years, I don't know, maybe he wouldn't have been president, because there are some crazies out there that we know he didn't become president legitimately. So he just needed, somebody got to him and said, try and be as normal as possible. I noticed he got a haircut. I noticed the hair was not a freaky color. I noticed that while he couldn't help himself, he still had, something on his skin. It wasn't quite as orange. So to the degree that Donald Trump can be toned down, and even when grading on a curve, if you squint, you could say he was somewhat normal. The fact that it was 5 years ago, almost to the day, where we found out that he had this super PAC, he was lying about it. I mean, when the crazy stuff started. So if this is what it takes, and he still lied all over the place, to the point where we're all as exasperated as Joe Biden, just again, really, you're still doing this? But yeah, overall,
somebody said, I'm sorry. Someone had also sent a tweet out that I retweeted of, I feel like Donald Trump gets all of his information from the same websites that give your computer a virus. It's like,
they probably do. They come out of
well, he's the president, but he's getting his information
Both of those come out of the Kremlin, so it's probably not that
Well,
unlikely.
and speaking of virus, when you open up, you're basically saying, we could have had 2 million people die, and that hasn't happened yet. It's like, oh, yay. So I don't think that was a
the
great
first
start
thing
for
he
him.
said. He didn't even say hello or thank you, or usually at these things, like, thanks. Oh, it's so great to be here. Whatever. He just went right to 2 million people should be dead.
I know, it's really it's an astonishing way to say hello.
Absurd.
Yeah.
Just to pick up on a point you said there, Sherry, Obama, during his terrific speech yesterday, that barn burner of a speech that he did in Pennsylvania, he referenced that fatigue. He's saying the best thing that can happen out of this is that we no longer have to wake up every day and have to worry and think and fret about what Donald Trump is doing if he's no longer president. And so what are we going to do with our lives? But secondly to that is, it's true. I mean, he is the irritation level and the irritation factor of Donald Trump has gotten to the extent that it's just impossible to take anymore. And I think that's probably the sentiment we're seeing around the country as those many early voters. And in Pennsylvania, it's like, I think 1 million people have already voted in Pennsylvania. And a vast majority of them are Democrats or voting for Biden, at least. We're beginning to see that exhaustion really taking a hold on people, that they're willing to sit through hours and hours in a line, or stand in hours and hours in a line to get a vote in, which is remarkable. LB, I noticed something that you always talk to me about Donald Trump when you think about his physicality. He had that voice at the beginning. He had that, I don't know how you described his voice, but every time we speak on the phone, every once in a while after he's had one of these moments, he has this sort of husky, like a bad boy voice that he's just been, he's got into trouble and he's getting home and he's got to confess it to his father. That's sort of what it feels like. And it felt at the beginning that was the voice that he adopted.
Yeah, he has his tones, and because he's not connected to having accuracy in his information. He's not coming from any part of his brain that is he's always talking from his balls, right? And like from his gut. It's like everything is from that part of the brain that's just like, ugh. And
right.
So he's going to come with that, right? When he's like, all right, I'll get ready to get in the ring. And so you're going to get that, right? And that, so everything gets delivered for that. And then he'll go into a different tone if it's like, and he always does this with the stuff that he gets called on, where he goes, well, I don't know anything about that. I don't know. He goes into this really soft voice of like, oh, I don't know. I don't know anything about any of that. So I didn't hear that tonight, but you did hear his aggressive stuff. He just has sort of his aggressive lever and then his sort of like,
I thought at the beginning he'd sounded a little bit like that scolded boy, but maybe I'm overreading into it.
You might be overreading. It's like, am I defensive? Am I offensive? What am I going to do here? Let me read the situation, like a shark smelling for blood in the water. Where's the blood? Where's the blood? Where's the blood? Where's my kill? Where's my kill? Where's my kill?
Yeah.
And everything is that for his brain. And
sure.
That's primal.
Sure. You mentioned the moment about race. Let's listen to that. We'll take a look at it. Let's take it's I think one of the best moments of the night. This is from them discussing racial tensions in America.
I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire, every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
It's a great line, and he did well. And and Trump responds by, I should have actually played a longer clip there, but yeah, Trump responded in a terrible way. He ate the answer there pretty badly. What a moment, I thought, for Biden, and a real opportunity for Trump to have gotten under that or gotten away from the race accusations, and he just wasn't able to. He walked right into that trap.
Can we just point out? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Just real quick, I love that he wanted to say Proud Boys and said Poor Boys, right. Because I don't know if he listened to Creedence or something right before. Early in the morning, just about supper time. Okay. Anyway, go ahead,
Well
Sherry.
done.
They're going to try to make that. Yeah, they're going to try to make that a moment of his. I actually don't think he was being clever in that moment, but nothing's better than to just nail those assholes with poor boys. We're just going to call them poor boys from now on.
It actually
great.
works really well.
As opposed to Proud Boys, which is such a cool, alpha straight male seeming thing to call your group.
Straight man?
It's so normal and mainstream. Yes. And hot.
Right.
So Sherry, you were going to jump in there about
It's a Canadian that came up with that. It's not even an American came up with that group.
You keep blaming the Canadians for these things. Come on. Sherry, what do you think about that moment? You mentioned it a little bit, but you were going to add something to that conversation.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it was a mistake when he said poor boys instead of proud boys. Look, overall, Joe Biden did well. I think that he could have hit a lot harder on the race issue, and I think that he should have. So that was a missed opportunity. So for someone like me who's done debate prep and debate negotiations, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what were the influences for each of these candidates prior to coming on that stage? I'm thinking in terms of the different people doing debate prep. And sometimes when you have more rather than less, you get things that it can get all jumbled. And that might even have something to do with Trump and his different voice tones. It's like he's got 5 different acting coaches. He doesn't, he goes in the one voice and then a different tone. And of course, he never pays attention to anyone. So he's only getting, a few of those notes in his head at the time, which is why you see him trying to adopt these different voice tones and different personalities, depending on what he remembers that the last person told him. And I think it's a lot more obvious with Trump. But when I look at Joe Biden, I do think that this was a case where he had a lot of different people telling him a number of different things. And so far, we've basically seen their strategy be just let him do his thing. It seemed as though there were some zingers that he was trying to lob at Trump, and those might have been organic. But overall, it seemed that they were trying to get him to speak to a higher level audience and stay above the fray. And I think for Joe Biden, that meant putting out a lot of information that perhaps he hadn't had enough time to really figure out how to spit out. And I think that's a function too of in the past debates, Trump was interrupting him and everything. I love Joe Biden, and I think he obviously won the debate. He certainly didn't lose it. But I think I'll be honest, I think there were some missed opportunities. It's also possible that because he's ahead in the polls and they don't want to make any mistakes or create any new news, had he gone harder, which I think maybe some of us would like him, and maybe that's my visceral emotion, wanting him to hit harder on some things. It's also very possible that they said, look, let's just play it straight, get through this, don't make any mistakes. We're ahead in the polls. And then they're going to have to go in and do some heavy advertising in some of the key battleground states that are getting closer. So when you look at what a debate is supposed to do, to the point I made earlier, you don't really you don't win a debate. You can only lose it. And so when I think about, again, I'm kind of thinking out loud here. I would have liked to have seen Joe Biden take some bigger punches at Trump, but then the actual political strategist in me, the one that actually has advised candidates, I'm thinking, you might actually want to curb those tendencies if you're ahead in the polls.
And you're speaking directly to the Americans.
It would have been great. I mean, there's ways to do it. There are ways to trigger this baboon we're dealing with. And one of the big triggers is to connect him and label him with the kinds of terms that misogynists use for women. And I'm just sort of shocked that no one has picked that up. And I found out like one little word, a little birdie told me, is, okay, there's one word that would make him go off the rails. And I got it to somebody way too late for it to get in there in any kind of debate prep. But it's like, if you call him hysterical, he will, in a dismissive way, he'll lose his shit.
Or over emotional. Yes.
Or over, but that specific word of hysterical. Saying, he's just being hysterical, or no matter how hysterical he gets about something doesn't make it true. Doesn't mean it's true just because he's being hysterical about it. He probably would have dropped his pants. Like he just would have freaked out over that word. So I think there were ways to land punches like what you're saying, Sherry, by these triggers that were missed as well that wouldn't have come across. It's like Hillary saying he's a puppet, and that he lost his shit when she called him a puppet, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't. There's certain ways to do that. We didn't get that nuance, but look, this. I'm sorry. This Leslie Stahl interview is going to blow up. This is all, whatever happened in this debate, as you said, Sherry, as long as Biden didn't lose it, there's so much more to come, even though it's just 12 days. And none of it is good for Trump. I didn't get a chance to watch. I had an early screening. Everyone in the Writers Guild got an early screening to the Borat movie. And I ended up just watching the debate. So
we all got an early screening to some parts.
I know. But I couldn't do the 2 screens at once. I was like, oh, my brain, guys, I'm tired. It's been a long time. I couldn't do it. I was going to even it's like a dance party. There's a Borat dance party going on right now.
Are you serious? That's amazing.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I could watch that while we're on Live with the Narrative.
We can do it. We can log on, I think, if we can try. Maybe it's too much.
Well, I can't because it's a code, and I can't do that. It's everything. But
it's only for her, Zev. It's not for us.
I'm sorry, we didn't cut. We didn't make the cuts, Greg. We're excluded.
It's for the whole union. But I don't think that that's gonna be good for anybody.
No.
That when everybody watches that tomorrow, I do have a little heads up about it, regardless of whether I saw it or not. It's not going to be good.
And it's available for free on Prime, right? Amazon Prime is playing this for free for anybody who has.
They are good. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you can, if you want to see Borat 2 and Rudy Giuliani in all his glory, as it were, it's on Amazon.
Tucking in his shirt.
Just tucking in my
That's
shirt.
How I tuck in my shirt in front of a 15-year-old. I got to do it. I got to go in.
Eastern European.
A 15-year-old is there. This is Rudy. So,
I have to say this about Rudy. I put this on Twitter. Rudy Giuliani on camera masturbating in front of a 15-year-old, allegedly, 15-year-old teenager was not on my 2020 bingo card, and it should have been because I'm paying attention to everything. So I'm embarrassed that I was not on things enough to know that should have been on the bingo card, because why wouldn't it be?
There's always next.
I'm never gonna.
Might not have been. I gotta watch it really, but he might not have been doing. It might not have been bad, but it's still. He thought that was a 15-year-old girl.
Well, how do you land up in a room with a 15-year-old girl from Eastern Europe if you're the president's lawyer? Anyhow, I mean, regardless of what he was doing in there, what are you doing in there?
What are you doing?
Yeah. We didn't get to hear the hysterical part tonight, but we did get a point in the early part of the conversation when they spoke about coronavirus, where Biden did call him. He said that he panicked. Let's take a look at that clip. It's quite short here.
What the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us. Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because what the president knew.
That's where it ends. I mean, it's a good clip because he did panic, of course, and we know that we're all paying the price for it. But he did diverge into this other part of it, which is that that they went to Wall Street. The Trump administration went to Wall Street and warned Wall Street that this thing was coming. Yeah. That this thing was going to be a disaster. And at the same time, he was lying to Americans. I mean, that dichotomy really is what we're looking at in this election. We're looking at two very, very different audiences for these two candidates. And the Scranton versus Fifth Avenue thing keeps coming up because, in fact, that's exactly what this is about. You've got a Main Street candidate who's speaking directly to the American people, and then you've got a guy who's so out of touch, who only cares about Wall Street and the Dow Jones, and that's where it ends for him. Anyone want to pick on that?
I think that there was another part later on where Biden was looking at the camera and talking about sitting around the kitchen table, and then Trump went on this weird rant about kitchen tables and how that doesn't mean anything, and it was so bizarre. Like,
does it
he just eat standing up over the sink? I don't know. what
Probably
happens
never been in
his
a
house.
kitchen.
I think he was trying to say, "Oh, Joe Biden, you're just doing that thing that politicians do, where you're talking about being around the kitchen table." I think that's what he was going for, but it didn't come across that way. It came across as Trump attacking the notion that we should care about families other than the Wall Street people, and it was, it was bizarre, I thought.
Speaking of families, Hunter Biden thing did show up a lot. Did it land for anybody? Do you think that landed for anybody in the audience, or in fact anybody who might be on the bubble there or willing to move across?
Yeah. First of all, who's on the bubble? Think about a person who's on the bubble. If you have been consuming information, if you're somebody who's going to sit down and watch a 90-minute debate on a weeknight, and but you are the information you've gotten so far is such that you are unable to make a determination about which of these two men you're supposed to vote for president. I mean, I don't think this debate can move anybody. There's nobody on that bubble. I don't see how there could be anybody on that bubble. And if they are on the bubble, they're not watching a debate, because the type of people that are going to sit and watch a debate and understand it and have just some foundation, some base knowledge of what they're talking about, they would already be informed enough to know who they're going to vote for. So
Chris Jansen on MSNBC had a couple of people, three of actually, African-American female voters who said that they were concerned about, sorry, my nose is running a little, who said that they were not convinced yet of who they were going to vote for. So,
do you believe that though? I mean, they get a chance to be on TV. I don't. Yeah,
I don't believe 100%. But their issue.
But the point you're making about the media is important. How this is all going to be spun into the same camps, and how it's going to be treated. So go ahead, Zev.
I was going to say that there are undecided voters, at least softer support, some people say, in the African American community. I haven't seen it necessarily myself because I don't see the polling in that granular detail. But and Trump referenced this tonight in the debate as well, that some African Americans still hold a bit of a grudge against Biden for his history on his credibility on race issues. And that's obviously not as bad as Donald Trump's, but that does seem to be a factor for some people who these three people who are talking on television today.
I saw the poll numbers for I think it was likely black voters, and it was 5% Trump and 93% Biden. Right. So the 5% is basically like 50 Cent, Ice Cube, and Kanye. So,
Jeff Quatnitz and Steve Bannon's former clients. Okay. So I think the thing that I'm concerned about, and I don't know about the bubbles, I don't know, but there is this hat trick happened in 2016 where that Access Hollywood tape had come out. You had people like Jason Chaffetz and others saying, I don't know how I can vote for this guy. You have Ben Sass is trying to do the Paul Ryan thing. He's like doing his own tapes and floating them out there of like, I'm going to let everybody know that I don't know, that whole, I don't know if I can vote for this guy. But it's the same playbook, right, that the Republicans play. And then what happens? Mike Pence comes in the 11th hour and says, come home, Republicans. And he does this sort of, nostalgic, come home, we're Republicans, it'll be okay. So I think what I get worried about is the fact that Trump he wasn't a train wreck. He wasn't. He was all the horrible things he's always been, but that's baked in, and that there might be Republican voters, older Republican voters especially, that will hear that sort of come home thing and just be like, okay, well, we just got to vote Republican anyway. I don't know that that'll move any needles in terms of the numbers, the big numbers that we need, but I think just watch for that playbook. I could see the media now doing this in this last week. I could see them doing the whole, you'll have Van Jones talking about how Donald Trump, blah, blah, blah. You'll have, all the players will come out and do their thing and make it all seem normal. And then Mike Pence will go, come home. And then
I think that works in Senate races. I think that the Republican Party is now so much the Trump party that nobody looks at it as, well, there's the Republican Party that we come home to, and Trump is just, a part of that, a temporary part of that. I think that this is now the whole party of Trump. I do think, however, you possibly where I am right now for a few days in South Carolina. You're going to be seeing a little bit of that with Lindsey Graham. They're toying with the idea of voting against him. They don't like him, but I do think that sadly, in the end, it just is a matter of how many, because the polls have been kind of going back and forth a little bit and kind of been tied. But I think, and as much as I hate this, I think there's a real chance that there'll be that aspect that you're talking about, the come home to the, stick with Lindsey, our safe Republican, and you might be seeing that. I'm hearing in Iowa with Joni Ernst. So I think you're going to see that in the state races with some Senate races. I don't think that translates for Trump because he's been so, successful in owning the Republican Party, where it's just defined by him. I think it really is a referendum on him. But then he's got that cult following that senators don't get. So it's almost like you've got two different personalities with the Republican Party out there. I mean, certainly Trump is a drag on a lot of them, but a lot of them is just this, like with Lindsey Graham, he's not the same guy that he was before when he was, John McCain's, Robin to John McCain's Batman or whatever. He's just not the same guy. By the way, I know Lindsey Graham. He's a freshman House member. And I was communications director for the House Education and Workforce Committee after the contract with America, Newt Gingrich and all that. And my peers were Ari Fleischer was communications director for Ways and Means. Ed Gillespie was Dick Armey. These were my peers. This was my world back then. And Lindsey Graham was a House freshman. And so I helped him out here and there with some of the committee stuff. And he was this happy-go-lucky, funny as all get out guy. And just seemed like just such a great guy, such a straight shooter, which I think is the impression that we all had of him, up until Trump. It got some sort of compromise on him. So that dynamic, I think that thing where you come home to the Republican Party, I just don't think that works for Trump. I think it definitely works in some of the Senate races, though. Lindsey Graham he may benefit from that, sadly.
You mentioned earlier on the Stuart Stevens piece that came out in the Bulwark, which was about about the sort of the Democratic mindset, that the Democrats don't have swagger in the way that the GOP and the Republicans have. And LB, you've spoken about this before, as have you, Greg. That there's Democrats are winning by a lot right now, especially the presidency, maybe not the Senate. But why are we suffering? Why is the suffering going on? Why this is it a hangover from Hillary Clinton, or is it something else?
No, it's how they've always been. I'm a new Democrat in terms of getting through this, but it's interesting to be somebody who is not political and sort of just, I'm just going to be an independent because it's also gross, right? That was my attitude for so long. But Republicans are always the victims. They always have all the power and play the victims, and Democrats just suffer. They just suffer, right? They're just always suffering. So I don't know. I don't know what, it's an American thing, I guess. People need to be, Democrats for some reason just don't know how to step out and be proud about what they accomplished. Wear that fucking flag. Put the flag outside your house. We're Americans, God damn it. They just don't do that, not because they're anti-American, but because they get some kind of secondary gain out of the badgering. I guess, that they're the sidekick to the bully, always.
Well, maybe it comes from being a victim for so long. Maybe that's you get used to it and you expect the worst.
What was the guy that was on with Hannity when he had the show with the quote unquote with the liberal, like back in the day? I think he's no longer with
Alan
us.
Combs. Alan Combs. He died a few years ago.
He sort of was like that. He had that personality of being super nice but not at all and right about everything, but not at all menacing. And if you just saw the two people talking with the sound off, you were just going to go do what Hannity said because, look at them, right?
I used to be on that show a lot as a Republican, a whole lot. Like when they first starting in 1997. Yes, my first time on
It
that
was
show.
all that the stuff. I felt like it was different at that time. Like I used to watch some of those things, even like Tucker Carlson when he was on Crossfire was fine, at least in my memory.
I used to be on Crossfire with Tucker Carlson. Yeah,
he was fine. I didn't think he was kind of like a Alex P. Keaton, snotty kind of whatever. He's not, as hateful and ugly as he's become. At least not that I remember. There seems like in the last 4 years, especially, there's been a real turn towards the ugly, and maybe it's been there all along, and I just haven't perceived it. I mean, that's
Laura Ingram's always been like this, though. Laura Ingram's always been like this. Tucker hasn't, but Laura's always been like this. Only now, primetime is ready for her. Before she was too much for primetime, and now it's like she's perfect for it. So she hasn't changed.
Sad statement.
I guess there's something to be said for that. I before we move on, Zev, could I just point out that how many times the word coyote was said tonight during the debate by both people, and a lot of people have no idea that a coyote is just someone who brings people over the border. And I think a lot of people were watching the debate imagining an actual coyote bringing babies across the border.
A lot of lingos.
Thank you for clarifying. I was one of those people. I had no idea.
Okay, there you go. No, my wife didn't know. My kid didn't know, and people on Twitter were like, coyotes.
When it comes out of Donald Trump's mouth, you're never sure if it's just making up some crazy thing or whether.
No, he knows what a coyote is because that's the trafficking. He has to know all about that.
They work
the terms and everything. He's very. It's amazing how for someone as stupid as he is in almost every other area, how fluent he is in the language of trafficking humans.
Yeah, it's very true. Very good point. Let's take a listen to another clip. This is Russia. This is then they've I'm here because of Trump Russia, and here we are 4 years later still having this debate about whether Trump Russia was a real thing. Not here, but they were on the stage. Let's take a listen to them talking about it, the election interference that's going on right now, but it also goes back to 2016.
And I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's talking to them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything that's going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question, why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
It was good that he brought up Afghanistan because we had not heard that in the debate and we had not heard about the bounties. And that was a good moment, important to bring up because there's no real response to that, nothing you could say, for that lack of leadership that Donald Trump has shown.
He didn't respond to it.
Yeah.
He still won't respond to it. He won't say anything about these bounties. They're not bounties unless
and that's a big issue.
That means that our soldiers are dead. Right? For these fucking bounties. It's not a bounty until it's paid. Then it's a bounty. So if they have evidence that bounties happen, that means they have evidence that these people were paid to kill our men and women in uniform by that fucker that he can't stop, loving up.
And it's crazy. that we're still in the same problem that we were 4 years ago. We still have election interference, probably worse now than it was in 2016. And Americans are still considering him as a possible president again. It's mind-boggling to me that you could have such an attack on sovereignty, and I'm glad he phrased it in that way, because this is an attack on American sovereignty. This is as the same thing as being attacked by weapons that are real. This is an absolute attack, and people are still sort of okay with it. They sort of understand that that's just part of they don't.
I think they don't know. No,
Yeah.
I don't think they really know. I mean, Greg has wanted to talk about this with this book, Dirty Rubles, but I think the big change here was when, and it seemed like it's subtle, but the biggest and most damaging thing that happened to America was when half of America, or almost half, and when enough Americans were convinced, they were told, don't listen to any other media except Fox. Everybody's lying to you. They're fake news. Only listen to this one. And so, I know people like this. There is so much information they don't have. It's not like they're saying, you say, how can they know this and still vote for the guy? They honestly don't know it. They're not consuming real news. They watch a lot of TV, or they go to, some whatever the news sites they go to, the right-wing news sites, but they are told, close your eyes and, don't look at that man behind the mirror. Don't look behind the curtain. Don't look at anybody else. Don't read anybody else. Everybody else is lying to you. So you hear Trump people saying, well, MSNBC or CNN or whatever, that's fake news. It's like, well, how do you know? Have you watched them? People will say that they will rip apart Rachel Maddow, and they've never watched Rachel Maddow. And I think that's the difference between Trump supporters and non-Trump supporters, because the rest of us are familiar with all of the media. We know what Fox is doing because we do sometimes watch Fox. But the Trump supporters are told, basically, if you watch anything but Fox or listen to anybody other than Rush or Mark Levin, you are a traitor. That's a betrayal. So they actually are not informed. So when you ask the question, how can they support Trump, knowing what we all know now? They don't actually know it. They don't really know about Russian interference. They don't know really that there was a Republican-led Senate committee that put out a report saying, "Oh yeah, Putin is doing this." They are told not to listen to actual news. I think that is the big, when we dissect this over the course of the years and the decades, and the experts and the historians look at it, I think they're going to pinpoint that. How were so many Americans fooled? I think we're going to find out is so many Americans just didn't know 75% of the crap that Trump was doing. They're not on Twitter. They don't know what Trump is tweeting. I know these people. I have relatives who support Trump, but they're not on Twitter. They don't. If they saw the craziness every day, they might feel the same way that we do, but they don't know. They only hear about tweets as they are explained or filtered through Sean Hannity or the likes of Laura Ingraham or Tucker Carlson. I think that's the problem.
Absolutely.
It is a problem. There's another piece to that that's really important, which is they also listened to, during the Obama administration, from Fox, this outrageousness that was said about Obama. So when they hear the stuff being said about Trump now, it sounds a lot to them like everything that they were saying about Obama during the Obama years, right? He wasn't born here. He's a traitor. He's all those same things. And so there's a part of that that's like, oh, okay, now you guys get to feel what we felt. We didn't sleep during those Obama years. We were agitated. We were upset. We didn't want him to get another term. They were in a state of distress because they thought, if he gets reelected, if Obama gets reelected, it's the end of democracy. How many times were they fed that on Fox, right? So they hear us saying it, not just us. They're hearing intelligence officials say this. They're hearing Mike Hayden say this, and people of real substance and real expertise saying, if this guy gets in again, it is the end of it. It's the end of it, right? It's like we don't know if we'll recover. So they're
not hearing that, though.
They're getting a real threat, though. But even if they hear it, Sherry, it just sounds exactly like what they were saying about Obama. So it sounds like politics to them.
Hyperbole, yeah.
Sounds like the territory has been prepared for this.
And everything we're saying that we want with a Biden presidency, if we just want to not listen to a president anymore, we want to not have to worry about it. We want to just know our guy's in there and we can go to sleep. Well, that's what they're doing with Trump. Our guy's in there. We can fucking relax now because we don't have to worry about it because the Obama guy's gone and our guy's in there. And they're just out living their lives. Nothing makes sense to them. What breaks through all of that is death.
Yeah.
Death breaks it. So the fact that we still can't seem to get folks focused on COVID and what really that is, with us now the fourth largest mass casualty event in U.S. history.
Wow.
And it's on track to overtake, which the Civil War is the first one. It's on track to overtake that. It will become the greatest mass casualty event in U.S. history. It will. When we get there, we'll be in the spring. And hopefully not with this fucking guy in there. And I still don't think that's connecting for people to the magnitude that it needs to, that this is a failed response. And it was an intentionally failed response so that people like Jared Kushner could do whatever he's doing, profiting off of it, trying to build a media empire, whatever the fuck Jared thinks he gets out of or is in there to make sure he gets out of. Dead Americans, hundreds of thousands of dead Americans. That's where I want the spotlight.
I wish
Instead, we're
Biden
gonna
had hit that harder today.
I wish I had too.
Why don't they mention Kushner's name? I don't understand why the hell they don't mention this guy.
Either, Greg.
Call him the acting president and mention. You talk about words that'll drive Trump crazy. Telling Trump to his face, what when Kushner told you to do this, why did you listen to him? We know you listen to whatever he says. Why did you listen when Kushner said, don't do the plan that his own people cooked up with? Why? You know, this is now 3 debates. His name has not come up once. It's ridiculous.
We spend more time talking about Biden's son who's not in office than we did about talking about Trump's son-in-law who is in office, who's running the country into the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
I want to just real quick talking about breaking through to the various bubbles and the people that don't go on Twitter or know all the information. This is a good opportunity to talk about what Sherry's been doing with America Reads the Mueller Report. I think we should give it a little bit of a plug, just in case anybody watching out there tonight doesn't know about it.
It's a fantastic project, Sherry. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah.
America Reads the Mueller Report. You can go there, americareadsthemullerreport.org. We're at the very last kind of tail end of being able to air anything before the election, and we'll air a couple after the election, actually, because we are educational. We're a 501c4. We're educational, not a super PAC. And we have celebrities and a few real people reading direct excerpts from the Mueller Report. We've been doing this for over a year. We just started airing it a year ago, and it's a half-hour reading. And we put this on local TV stations in some key states, and we go everywhere from, we might bracket, or go in like right before or after an early morning farm news report in Wisconsin for farmers who are not on Twitter and all they know is that Bill Barr told them that, Trump was exonerated, everything's fine. And then we've also gone in bigger markets where we're going to be adjacent to, Fox News Sunday in Tucson, or this week with George Stephanopoulos in Jacksonville, Florida. So we've aired about 100 times, 100 half hours. Yeah. And it's all on donations from people. And, we don't have any big sugar daddies. I don't have Tom Steyer's phone number. I can't reach Mike Bloomberg. So this is all people on Twitter, thousands and thousands of people on Twitter who send us their dollars so we can do this. And we don't have any overhead. We produced it with we have Montel Williams, Morgan Fairchild, Tom Arnold, Willie Garson, and John Cryer. And so far I've had all of them on my podcast, except for Montel. Still have to get him. But we had a big one with Tom Arnold I just put up last night. So, and God bless these folks. They don't get paid. These are patriots, and they can take heat in Hollywood for being, they probably have agents that are saying, you can't be too political, but they're all just like, I don't care. I want to do this. And they're wonderful, and they volunteered their time, and they've been pushing this out there. I know you see them all on Twitter. They're all very active, and they're very, outspoken, and it's just been great working with them, and then seeing all the other stuff that they've done over the past year plus. I think they're patriots, and I love them all. So
is the whole Mueller report, or is it just a portion of the Mueller? Is it a abridged version?
We read excerpts, and so I mainly took them from the summaries because I thought the summaries were very well written and explained it very well. And there's absolutely no political commentary, no spin. I mean, nothing. They're reading just the excerpts, and we have some real folks, just regular people reading some little bits and pieces from it. And it's amazing to me when I've seen. And Greg probably feels this way too because of his book. He's been so deep dive into the Russia stuff. And then here we have the Mueller report, and I put this stuff out there. And when something comes out like, oh my gosh, did you hear when it came out that it was Roger Stone that apparently called Trump and said, the Hillary's emails are going to be released, and WikiLeaks is doing it. So Trump then looked at Rick Gates, and he planned his whole campaign strategy, communication strategy around it. We have that's in the Mueller report, and we read that, and America reads the Mueller report. And it's amazing to me how many people, including reporters who cover this issue, not only did they not read the Mueller report, but they didn't even read the summaries because they're like, oh my gosh, this is all new news. Even when Roger Stone's name was redacted, we all knew it was Roger Stone. This wasn't new. And I have this 84-year-old, African American woman from Kansas, from Wichita, Kansas, reading that part from the Mueller report. I told you we have a few real people, and she's reading this whole thing about Rick Gates, and she's a friend's, mother out there, and she's a retired minister of music for her local church. So these are just regular people, in the Midwest, and they know this stuff. And we have political reporters out of Washington, New York that don't, and that just blows my mind.
Absolutely,
blows my mind.
Yeah.
And the podcast is called the Sherry Jacobus Politics Podcast. Is that right?
It's Politics with Sherry Jacobus. That's and I'm on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Libsyn. We'll get on some more. So I'm kind of new at this. So I learned from guys like you.
Well, it's great. It's a great broadcast, and you have fantastic guests. That's a great lineup you had last week. So good job on getting all those good names on your show. It's fantastic.
Thanks. It's fun.
Should we listen to? Sorry, go ahead.
I do want to say that I think Sherry has been from the very, very beginning. I think you even started, Sherry, before the election of 2016.
Hell yeah.
Speaking out, saying, nope, here's what's going on.
Well, I knew, yeah.
Fearlessly, and you knew. You had, and what's interesting is, and I had information. It was like, no, here's the information. Here's the, it used to be that in American, especially in our justice system, that eyewitnesses were evidence. Like that was your best evidence you could ever get for something, for criminality or misdeeds, was actually having an eyewitness, a person in the room. Sherry is an eyewitness to a bunch of horrible that went down.
Oh yeah, my story is too long to even talk about here, but it's a long one, and on
your Twitter feed, and folks should follow her and pay attention to what she's saying. She's telling you what actually happened because she's a witness. She witnessed it. It happened to her. I'm a witness. I saw shit. I'm not lying about that. I saw what I saw. I heard what I heard. It's like, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Arnold the same. Noel Castler the same. We were.
Well, Tom Arnold has some tapes.
Yeah.
Tom Arnold has tapes. In fact, he was trying to play one of my podcasts. We couldn't hear it, and then I'm thinking, and then I have to check out, can I legally do this? Because we can do it another time. But he's got some, phone conversations between himself and Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was in prison, and I've heard them, but I can't do anything with them.
That's a whole other conversation, though. It is interesting.
It's all going to make its way out.
I know so much.
It's a whole other conversation. It's all going to make its way out.
But your story is important, though. In fact, just in terms of.
It's hard to have the knowledge.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to connect us back to what we're looking at today in terms of the debate. Sherry, your experience of being taken off CNN at the behest, I guess, of the Trump campaign. You were a regular contributor there, and they were able to reach into the supposed fake news world, the bastion of supposed liberal reporting, CNN, and pluck you off the air.
First of all, Jeb Zucker runs CNN, and when he was head of entertainment at NBC, he greenlit The Apprentice for Trump. They're very, very good friends, and I'd kind of forgotten about that. But it was in October. It was when it was exactly 5 years ago when Trump first did it at Fox News, because I had publicly confirmed a Washington Post report. I was not the source, but I publicly confirmed that, in fact, Trump had a super PAC and was lying when he said he didn't. He and Lewandowski were lying, and they were threatening to sue the Post. Well, Trump went to 2 of the fundraisers for it. I mean, there's all this stuff. He did it, and when I saw he was lying, I put out some numbered tweets. I didn't know how to thread them then, making it very clear that Lewandowski had told me all about this in May and June of 2015 when they'd taken a run at me. They'd approached me to come be communicate. Actually, I didn't interview. I didn't agree to an interview. I would agree to have lunch with a friend who was going to work for the Trump campaign, because he said, "Oh, we need a communications director," and I couldn't really. Actually, he was going to work for the super PAC, and I couldn't really just say no. I said, well, "Why don't we sit down and talk about it?" So I was meeting him for lunch, and he brought along a guy I'd never met, never heard of, didn't know, named Corey Lewandowski. So they kind of apologized for having to ambush me, kind of work on me like that. And so that I knew all about the super PAC. In fact, Corey was so open about it. And in fact, at that point in time, Don McGahn, he's a former FEC commissioner, and he was chief counsel for the campaign. And here he was later trying to help Trump lie to the American people about having it, and silence me with the NDA and the whole 9 yards. I had to get the FBI was involved. I was catfished. The catfishing started the day that I came forward and said they're lying. They had a super PAC, and when we put the dates together later with the FBI, that was the day that started. And then that February, it was Jeff Zucker at CNN. In fact, the super PAC came up. I didn't choose the subject for the show. I was on Don Lemon's show. I was on with Kayleen McEnany and somebody else, and we were talking about disease self-financing, and I brought up that article. And that night, Trump defamed me on Twitter. "Oh, she came to us and begged for a job and didn't get." I'm like, I didn't beg. You guys came to me, And when I saw a Lewandowski meltdown, I told my friend, "Hey, thanks, but no thanks." I didn't appreciate the hazing, but you have a great time working on that super PAC. And, that was it. Yeah. And so when then Zucker put out the order at CNN to not book me anymore, because clearly I had a conflict. Well, I could show that Trump was lying. I had everything, in writing, all their messages to me. And when it became very clear that CNN didn't care, I knew there were some people on the inside who were like, whoa, because it was still pretty new. They still couldn't accept the fact that CNN was basically handing the nomination to Trump. There were a lot of people on the inside at CNN, and there was a CNN town hall with employees, and they were all kind of complaining to Zucker, saying, "We think we're giving this guy the nomination with all this coverage." And he said, "I don't care. Keep the cameras on him till the eyeballs leave."
They're still doing a lot of that stuff. I mean, you still watch their coverage today.
Doing it. Yeah.
Trump gets so much coverage on CNN.
Well, they actually Zucker. Let me say, I got one more thing to tell you about this. Zucker scrubbed the transcript archives of that segment with me. That's how far he went for Trump. So yeah, Trump had picked up the phone, obviously, and called Roger Ailes and said, "Keep her off the air." And after thousands of appearances in 17 years or whatever, and he did that. And he had Bill O'Reilly hop on Gretchen Carlson's show midday to lie to people and say, "Oh, that Washington Post piece, there's no super PAC." So Trump went really far out of his way. And I recently got word that they're concerned about how much I know about Don McGahn. So yeah, I'm still somebody they're nervous about, and they're very good at ruining people. And they got Michael Caputo to do that, and they have friends in the press. They have right-wing plants in mainstream media, and they're very good at this. So the damage that Trump has done to people, his people have done for him, to other people like me, it's incalculable. It's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it in my life, and I've been around for decades in politics and media. But yeah, Jeff Zucker gave this to Trump. And what?
They're mobsters. That's what the mob
They're
does.
mobsters. They are. But Jeff Zucker, I think, is more responsible for putting Trump in the White House than anybody else in America. I think, yeah. And
I agree with you. I've never heard someone say that as clearly as you have, but I think that's exactly true. I think Jeff Zucker is the reason we have Donald Trump for a number of reasons, because of The Apprentice, but also because of that coverage at CNN. And it continues until now. I mean, it's the amount of coverage, just the minutes and hours that Trump gets on CNN is astonishing.
And his people.
Yeah,
and his people. Then they had Michael Caputo on. They put Kellyanne on constantly. It's like, why do you have liars on? I mean, like you said, it's constant.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Look at the time. It's almost time to go. I want to play one more clip. Can I do that? Is that okay? Is everyone okay for a little bit longer? Okay.
This is water, by the way. I do not have a beer to go cap. I just that.
Beers are welcome here. Well,
No,
I only
this
have a
is
Diet
ice
Coke.
water.
In South Carolina, that's called a roadie. I have it. Not beer.
All right, let's take a listen to this next one from the debate tonight.
The question, you are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with these guys?
The bill that was passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to
our people's pockets to those people. And I was talking about the immigrants, and he was talking about Democrat states. I think that was very revealing tonight. And he let something out there that you can't look at this man and think that he's honest in any way, but sometimes the truth comes out despite him. And I think we saw that in a couple of moments today, and that was one of them. We were talking about our money. Who's he really talking about? He's talking about this elite billionaire class that, of who? The Koch brothers and the Mercers and the DeVosses. Is that who he's talking about? It's not their money. It's our money. It's Americans' money. It doesn't belong to the top 1%. In fact, it probably doesn't belong to them at all because they never pay taxes, as was pointed out. So, I thought that was one of those moments where you could really tell the difference again between these two candidates. And I think, yes, there might be people out there who think Trump is okay, but they don't think that he's on their side, not in the same way that Biden is on their side. Anyone will pick up?
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah, go ahead. I was screaming. That was when I was yelling at the TV, and I walked away because of, unfortunately, I'm going to put this right at the moderator's feet. Looking at Joe Biden and saying, you're the leader of the Democratic Party, why haven't you done anything about this?
Right.
It's the same thing that Wolf Blitzer did to Nancy Pelosi not too long ago of like, why aren't you going ahead and making a deal? They are carrying the water of this horseshit propaganda that is cooked out of the Republican political machine, right, on behalf of Donald Trump, that has nothing to do with reality. And it's as if they've lost their goddamn minds. And as journalists, as media hosts, as whatever the fuck they think they are at the moment, right, of just pointing to the guy who's not even in office, saying, you're the head of the party. Why can't you get your party to do so? What the fuck are you talking about?
It's not how it works. It's not how it works. It's just not the system. And they know how the system works.
What the fuck are they doing? Again, we're doing this again. It actually doesn't make sense. There's no good excuse for that kind of questioning, that kind of framing, that kind of positioning. I think Joe handled himself really well there. But there's no excuse for the Wolf Blitzers and the Christians of the world to be doing this. It's insanity.
The only thing that matters now is that Joe Biden went into this debate running ahead in the polls. I suspect he's still ahead of the polls. There's going to be some changes. They keep trying to throw us in these October surprises, but all he needed to do was not screw up, and I don't think he did. And Trump, while he screwed up royally last time, I don't think, even grading on a curve, I don't think he screwed up. I don't think that tonight changed anybody's minds. Period.
And a lot of the voting has already taken place, which is so important.
48 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm really curious about is what happens in Texas, to be honest, is because last I checked, it was 47-47. That is very unusual for Biden and Trump in the presidential. That's very
It's
unusual.
all over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if Biden wins that, I mean, that's 38 electoral votes. It's winner take all. And there's no way that Trump can make that up with any other states that he and Putin can try and, take 2 votes per precinct so nobody notices, like I believe they did in 2016, although there's different schools of thought on that. But if it's Texas, it's all over.
Yeah, so the trajectory of the country would change dramatically. If the Democrats win Texas, it changes everything. I mean, even though they don't win on down ballot. Last thoughts from everybody. What are you most fearful of, and what are you most hopeful for about Greg Olear?
We're all fearful for the same thing, which is that there's going to be fuckery. But I don't think there's going to be fuckery, because I think that we have the Department of Defense Cyber Command watching over us. I think that the indictment of those Russian agents earlier in the week was meant as a shot across the bow, saying, hey, we know exactly what you're doing. Do not fuck with us, motherfuckers. I think that's what they were saying when they did that. So I think the Department of Trump and his minions may be, trying to ignore it, but the actual people defending the country are defending the country. And don't sleep on NATO. I mean, NATO is an ally, a super important alliance that has preserved the Pax Americana, as I wrote about this week, since the end of the Second World War. And all of those countries have a vested interest in keeping America out of Russian hands and Trump not being president. So would a country like the Netherlands, which has an amazing intelligence service, be able to just shut the power off in Russia on election day? Would Estonia, would France and Germany? I think they can. And I think if it comes to that they will. So I'm not worried about any of that stuff. And I just feel like people, at the end of the day, I think Joe Walsh tweeted this 2 years ago. He said, at the end of the day, Trump's going to lose because everyone's sick of him. And I think that's true. I think they were sick. He meant it figuratively, and now literally they're sick because of him. Yeah. And I think those two factors combined are going to be it. And you can tell that they know it. And that's why they want this Amy COVID Barrett lady in there, because they know this is the last bite of the apple for a long time, because after January, that's it for them for a while. If they lose Texas, they're going to have to reformulate the party and start from scratch. They probably have to do that anyway. And I think the country would benefit, honestly, if they would. There should be a party that argues for smaller government and this and that, and there are sides to all of these things that should reasonably be argued about. That's politics.
We need that.
That's what we should be doing. Mm-hmm. This business with Trump is not about politics, and that's something that I think a lot of people fail to grasp who don't pay attention as closely as we do. That, for me,
you mean
talking with my family.
You don't like the RNC platform this year? Are you saying that that's not substantive?
Is the RNC platform like the big blank book that Kayleigh McEnany gave to Leslie Stahl? Is it like the same thing?
It's for the first time ever. Their platform literally is, we just agree with whatever Trump wants to do, no matter what.
It's Heil Trump, really.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Heil Trump. It's also terrible. Inside of that, you're all a bunch of meanies. That's it. You're all mean to me. That's the platform.
Greg mentioned his amazing Substack, which everyone should go check out. It's at prevail.substack.com.
It's actually, now you could just go to gregolear.com and it'll go
easier enough. gregolear.com. Sign up for that. It's the best newsletter around. And Tuesdays and
Fridays. I have a funny one. Tomorrow's is funny.
I quote tweet him all the time.
Yeah, it's really, really fantastic and really great writing. One of the best writers I know, and certainly a worthwhile read every Tuesday and Friday. So sign up for that. And final thoughts from you, LB. Hopes and fears for as we go ahead in these last 12 days.
Oh, look, we just got to make it. Just try to get some sleep and try to get through it, and we'll keep punching through the narrative where we feel like we need to because of all the horseshit. Hopefully that's helping. And we did a big push today again. Greg and I are in a group where we're pushing a link out for donating directly into the campaign. It is a campaign fundraising link. It goes right to Joe and Kamala. It's not a PAC. Not that the PACs are all bad. I really want it going to them. I think if there's anything that can be close in this election, if it ends up close or like we're dealing with margins, they're going to cheat, lie, steal, the Republicans and Trump. And the legal battle will be massive. Yes, Joe has a lot of money. Guess what? He's going to need every single penny of that. He really is. And helping him also does help the down ballot. I know everyone's like, well, we're so worried about the Senate. Listen, these Senate races, they have a lot of money too. They've already placed their ads. They're doing it. The voting has happened. We need a legal war chest to fight these motherfuckers, because they're gonna try to steal this shit. It's related. I call her Amy Coney Bigot because she's a bigot.
She is.
It really offends me. That to me it's just disqualifying to be that bigoted. But that's what Mitch McConnell's court packing has all been about. It's been about getting these rulings when they need it for holding on to their power. And so vote.
And where can people sign up for the donations?
Well, go to my timeline. I'll tweet out again. You can go to Greg's. You can go to Andy Laufer's. There's several of us who have been tweeting out the link of just click on that link and just know. And there's several links. But this one we know goes right to the campaign, right to the legal war chest, right to the get out the vote efforts, right to Joe.
It's going to be necessary. I think it's really going to be necessary.
It's going to be necessary. Yeah.
These guys have not changed their stripes. Sherry, one last thought from you, and anything else you want to say in the debate
I agree
tonight?
with Greg. My fear is the same, that they're going to cheat, that they're going to find 2 votes per precinct in some of those battleground states, the Triple Crown of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And that's why he needs to win by a blowout. Biden does, because if it's close, they can cheat. And so that is my fear. And there won't be anything we can do. We haven't been able to stop him yet. That's my fear. My hope is that it's a blowout on election night. It is decided, that there's no dragging it out, and that if Trump wants to, he's alone out there. Because when the Republicans see the handwriting on the wall, they're going to pull out the saw and saw off that limb. And that's my hope. And then we all go through a 3-month shut down this country so we can heal, and from COVID and from Trump. And then when we all come out of our caves again, when it's safe, it's a whole new world, and we only have to hear from our president when we need to, and not have to wake up every day being terrified to turn on the TV and find out what this asshole has said or done.
That's a great way to end the show. Thanks very much for joining us, everybody. The after show is actually tomorrow night, so we'll see LB and Greg back here. And Sherry, thanks so much for being a great guest tonight. And everyone can find the podcast on, I'm going to get it wrong.
Politics with Sherry Jacobus, yes.
Thank you very much.
iTunes, Google Podcast, Libsyn, and what was the other one? Spotify, yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for being here tonight, everybody. And have a good night. We'll be back tomorrow night.
Support Narrative's independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative, and check out our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe and download.